Welcome to these brief daily devotionals during Holy Week. Each day of this week, we'll walk along the way with Jesus as he goes to the cross, tracing his steps through the scriptures and following along with him. We have three hopes. First, that these scriptures will open your hearts and minds to the sorrow and suffering of Jesus, that you would see in him God in the flesh, the Son of God, going to the cross, rich in compassion, strong in mercy for yourself and for all of us, and that you'd respond with faith and love. Second, we hope that God's words here will open your hearts and minds to the suffering of others around us, the sick and suffering, the lost and wounded, the oppressed and broken, those falsely accused or condemned. And then third, we hope that these scriptures and devotionals open up a space for meditation and reflection as we together walk as a church, approaching the events of Maundy, Thursday, Good Friday, and then Easter Sunday. So whether you do these at home, or as you travel over spring break, or as you gather in the church for worship each night, we invite you to join us. Come and see. Our first step along this way is the scene in Luke 23, where Jesus is condemned to death before Pilate. And we know where the story goes. We know the line in the Apostles' Creed that Jesus suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, dead, and buried. And here we see Jesus hauled before Pilate. As the Roman governor, only Pilate can authorize Jesus' death. He had the power for capital punishment. And here's Jesus caught in a tug of war between the Jewish leaders with their growing crowds and Pilate, who holds the keys of judgment. And here's Jesus standing alone at their mercy. I mean, this whole scene just drives home to us the innocence of Jesus, falsely accused and condemned, and the guilt of everyone who shares in that judgment. First, we see Pilate in a hard place. 2 times he makes it explicit that he finds Jesus not guilty of any charge, that he's done nothing deserving of death. And yet 2 times the priests and leaders and people cry out, "Away with Jesus," and send him to be crucified. And then a 3rd time, Pilate tries to protest, desiring to release Jesus and stating that in him there's no guilt deserving death. And yet a 3rd time, the crowd demands with loud voices that he should be crucified. And the whole scene is a contest of wills. It's like a song whose verses just repeat louder and louder 3 times until it maxes out with this fateful end. Their voices prevailed. Pilate decides their demand should be granted. It might be difficult to witness this scene. Have you ever been part of a mob or a crowd? I have at least twice I can think of. Once I was thrilled at what was happening, caught up in the excitement and passion, and once I was afraid and trembling at the power and anger surging through everyone that seemed to be taking over. And Pilate here is more responsible than the crowd. They thought him guilty, but Pilate knew Jesus to be innocent. And see Jesus here, standing with all those who are falsely accused, innocently condemned, unjustly punished. Every injustice is an act against justice and an act against Jesus Christ, the just and innocent one. But let's don't let the crowd off the hook for a mistaken belief. Come and see a double injustice here. They don't just demand that an innocent man be condemned, that's Jesus, because they think he's guilty. They demand a man they know to be guilty be set free. That's Barabbas. Barabbas is guilty of the very things Jesus is charged with: insurrection, subverting the nation. But he's the one who gets set free. Barabbas is the very name meaning son of the Father. And yet we know Jesus to be the one true Son of the Father. So think about this. The true Son of God trades places with an everyday man deserving of death. Do you see what's happening here? The innocent man handed over in place of the guilty one going free instead. In this one scene is just a mini parable of the whole of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection for us. The one righteous, innocent Son of the Father took on a human life like yours and came to take your guilty place so that you, a son or daughter of God yourself, made in his image, might go free. As Paul reminds us in Romans 5:8, it's just at this point, while we were still guilty sinners, angrily demanding God's death, it's at that moment Jesus Christ came to die for us. This, our first scene on the way to the cross, peels back the layers to let us see the whole story about to unfold. That Jesus Christ, walking to his death, was walking for me, was walking to take my place, was walking to set me free.